from Lowdown Syndrome. We're here at Gilbert Lindsay Park, home of the Four Tray Gangster Crips. A lot of things have changed over the years.
So where did you live when you used to come to this park?
Well, actually it wasn't this park that I used to come to. It was the old Wrigley Field initially. And I was living 1249 East 43rd Street, which is between Central and Hooper. I also lived with my grandfather on East 69th in San Pedro. This is the early 70s, from 70 to like 73. I was between my mother and my grandfather, and I actually was going to 66th Street School, which is an elementary down on San Pedro. And I went there for 2 or 3 years. And as I said, you know, I was back and forth to Houston too. Some of those times I had actually came to Houston and was re-enrolled in school. I was in Houston with my maternal grandmother and my father in 5th Ward. So I was like moved around a lot. And of course I likes the name Moving Gang, because I'm one of the original movers. Kevin and I guess I'll say James. They were the only 2 kids that actually tried to comfort me while I was being ridiculed. You know, kids are very cruel. So by me having the dialect that I had, it kind of got me picked on somewhat, but you know, it was a couple of little friends, and I was mostly running after the teenagers, the big homies, you know, and they didn't actually pick on me. They just would laugh at some of the things I would say because of my pronunciations and dialect and southern accent or Texas twang, whatever they wanted to call it. But so I didn't really have friends at 66th Street School. When I actually got acquainted with the Four Trays in full is 1973. And prior to then, I knew just Crips, Eastside Crips. Actually, Raymond Washington and Craig Craddock and Psycho Michael, you know, the originals. My grandfather stayed on East 69 in San Pedro, and Raymond and all the Crips would walk through there. Raymond stayed on 76 in San Pedro, him and Craig, and they would always be walking from 76 down to the 60s. So they would pass the house. We was right on the corner. When I met them in 1970, when they was going through there, I was going to school and things like that. I, you know, knew them as the big homies. They was Crips. They were already established when I met them. And I used to actually run to the store and get them a pop. Back then, I would sell soda water, and that's how I got the name Lil Country from Raymond Washington.
Oh, you got your name directly from him?
From Raymond Washington.
Okay, talk about how that came about.
Well, 49 years ago in 1970, soda water, y'all, Fintu, Flow, for sure. None of those things were actually said by the Angelinos. I was like a fish out of water in LA with my dialect. They was, you know, making fun, laughing, and, oh, you country? And I was like, nah, I ain't from no country. I'm from Houston, 5th Ward. You know, letting them know I was actually from a major city, but, you know, the accent.
So basically, Raymond and Craig would kind of tease you a little bit about your accent?
A little, you know, not just tease me, but, you know, some of the things that at the spur of the moment that I would say that was unheard of at the time Yeah, you know, oh, I'm finna go to the store. I'm finna go to the store, you know. What is that, you know? Finna, about, you know. Like I say, you know, that was just early dialect from being raised in the South.
So you were actually born in Houston and came here as a little kid?
Yes.
So when you came, you must have came here, what, in the 60s?
Back and forth in the 60s, like my mom was telling my wife, who's a Marine, that I had already been to Camp Pendleton. She said she wanted to take me to Camp Pendleton. And my mom was like, oh, he been to Camp Pendleton when he was 2-3 years old. And I was like, well, I don't remember that, you know. But my mother's ex-husband was a Marine as well. And that's how, you know, was actually in Camp Pendleton. So early on, I was here because my grandfather actually migrated to Los Angeles when he left the Army in 1930. So he had been here with his 18 brothers and sisters since 1930, and this was my mother's father. So Dad had her here, as well as my auntie Janetta over in the Compton. They were here because of their father, my grandfather, Bully Hall.
Seeing Craig Craddock and Raymond Washington and Psycho Mike, did you ever at that point want to be an Eastside Crip?
Yeah, I did, and that was one of the homies, one of the big homies from Four Tray asked me the other day, Friday, he was like, well, why you didn't be East Side, you know, down there in the 60s if you lived with your grandfather? And, you know, like I said to him, I was a child. And I was back and forth between my grandfather and my mother on that. I was on 43rd and I was on 69th. Crips were Crips at that time, even before all the different sets started forming. It was just Eastside Crips, and they were from everywhere.
What do you remember about Craig Craddock? Because I think he got killed early on.
Yeah, he got killed
or
somewhere around there. He got killed, yeah, somewhere around there, maybe 72. Yeah, I remember he was a big guy, bright with green eyes or gray eyes. He had some funny colored eyes. He was light skinned. He was big, and he was a pretty tough guy. But he got killed early on, and that's why a lot of people really don't even remember him. I think the Crips were actually out maybe 2 or 3 years when Craig got killed. So a lot of them, you know, they didn't even remember. And I never heard of him. It's something that, you know, never even actually heard of him.
Did he have a nickname?
Not that I know of. It was Craig. They just called him Craig. You know, I guess he didn't need a nickname. They didn't even call him Red. You know, sometimes, you know, light-skinned guys, they get called Red. They didn't even call him Red, you know. He was just Craig.
And Raymond didn't really have a nickname, or did he?
Some called him Truck, Ray. And them was probably like just close, just real close to him. Everybody was, I say, damn near Raymond Washington. They would say his whole name, you know.
I heard that he was kind of like Raymond's right-hand man at that time.
Yeah, they were like best friends. They both lived on the same street, I think, as next door neighbors or a house or so away. But they was down on 76. I was on 69 sometimes, right there on the corner. And that gave me access to see the original Crips, because they were teenagers at the time. They were actually teenagers themselves. They was 15, 16, 17 years old, even Raymond at this time. So they was walking 30, 50 deep down San Pedro, going to the park or to the concert or to Watts. You know, San Pedro was a popular street for Crips back then.
Which community do you think had more influence on you when you lived on 69th or when you lived on 43rd?
I guess 43rd, and then now that's, you know, due to Black Johnny, because Black Johnny was also down on the end in the 60s, 70s, up and down, you know, San Pedro with Raymond. And, you know, he found out that I lived on 43rd, and, you know, it was, hey, it was on. But, and then that's something I want to say. A lot of people will say Black Johnny founded the set, and it has some truth to it, but he's not the original founder. It was actually like Pitbull and Tommy. And Pitbull, rest in peace, I just found out he was murdered not too long ago over a box of matches at a store around the corner. They used to give a box of matches when you bought a pack of cigarettes, and they didn't give him the matches, and he reached over the counter to get them, and they shot him in the face, killed him.
What, the store owners?
Yes.
Wow.
And this just happened maybe about 5 years ago.
And
Yeah, Pitbull is Julia Scott. They the one gave the keys to Black Johnny.
And what about Tommy?
I heard Tommy had moved to Texas. And they have another brother, I think Donald Ray, and I'm not sure where he's at. And then another one of the guys that was actually in the founding of some of the Four Tray is Gangster Tim. Gangster Tim was close with Black Johnny. They were from Compton. Let me say that. A lot of people don't know, but Black Johnny was from Compton. You know, he's not even originally from Four Tray, the neighborhood. He was from Compton. Gangster Tim is from Compton. You know, so they had the keys early on, and Four Tray was Avalon.
Yeah, so originally, what was the first name of the set?
The original first name is ABC, Avalon Baby Crips.
What year would you say you decided to start representing Four Tray?
Well, it was actually, it was Four Tray Avalon, and that was 73, and they got me out in the yard with a couple of little homies and roughed me up a little bit, you know, just to see if I had heart. Was I gonna fold up, cower? But, you know, I had heart. I was just, you know, I was kind of mean as a child. Some things that had happened to me, you know, as a child, as far as fighting. I had been a victim of police brutality prior to the, you know, really getting with the Crips. Some cops had jumped me and my grandmother in Texas, stomped us out, spit on us, called us all kind of niggers. Behind another guy stole something out of the store. We didn't even know it, wasn't with him, didn't have anything to do with it, but they had grabbed me and my grandmother. She was old school, she hated white people, and she ran into the police and started putting hands on them. We were both fighting them, and they outnumbered us. And they got the best of us, so I wasn't scared. You know, I just fought, and that was that. And when Raymond got killed, I was actually moved from my grandfather's over to Compton, to my auntie Janetta house. I was living in Compton over by Kelly Park. And from there, I came back to Houston. We got into something, stealing some earrings from JJ Newberry's downtown, and that was the end of that. And I got sent back to Texas.
So you remember Raymond getting killed in '79?
Yeah, I remember him getting killed, you know. Everybody knew. I mean, everybody knew. I mean, right there on 69 in San Pedro, and he got killed on 64th. So, you know, it wasn't hard to hear about, hey, Raymond Washington just got killed. And that was crazy. It was, you know, it was a bad time, a bad day. And a lot of things got started behind the death of Raymond. I ended up back in Houston, you know, right along that time. And when I went back to Houston, I was, Actually, I was fascinated by all the things that I had, seen in California back and forth. Anyway, and now that I'm going to go back to Houston and I'm, going to school and stuff there, I was trying to explain to the kids there in Houston about the Crips. It was a black gang in LA called the Crips, and I would name, some names, and they, a lot of, they was laughing. They thought I was lying, making jokes, or just, I guess saying, having a hell of a imagination for, telling stories. So they didn't take to the Crips. They couldn't visualize black gangs, black gang members, black gangsters. It was unheard of.
Thanks for watching StreetTV.net. If you're not subscribed, please hit that button below and click the bell to receive alerts and notifications. Feel free to comment below so you can give us your feedback, and be sure to watch the 2 related episodes to the right. If you want to support this platform or follow us on social media, visit the links in the description. And thanks for watching StreetTV.net.